from the tranquility here in the Isles of Scilly, it's time to head back to the city. And in this week's Tale of Two Travellers, Fi Glover and Simon Calder flew into the one-time imperial capital of Russia, St. Petersburg. Fi stayed in the city to see how it's reinventing itself after centuries of turmoil and 70 years of communism, while Simon picked up a new set of wheels and headed out into the countryside on a sponsored cycling holiday bound for Moscow. Chosen for its Baltic port location, St. Petersburg lies in the northeast corner of Russia. Fi took in the city sights, while Simon pedalled south into the Russian countryside, passing through Novgorod and Staraya Russa.
Now, Mr. Calder, I've got a little bit of a quote for you here. It is highly unlikely that the city of Leningrad will ever return to its original name of St. Petersburg. Now, who wrote that?
I did, Fi.
And where are we now?
We're in St. Petersburg, Fi.
Okay, so now you've got your bearings. What are you doing here?
Well, besides updating my guidebook, I'm joining a charity bike ride across the Russian countryside, something you couldn't actually have done in the old Soviet Union. Care to join me?
No, I don't think my thighs are up to it. No, I'm going to stay in St. Petersburg and just try and enjoy it as the international city that it is without spending too much time looking back over its very turbulent history.
What else does it say there? Mikhail Gorbachev, who's he?
It's a fascinating read, Simon.
Each of my 40 fellow cyclists has raised at least £2,000 in sponsorship. Half goes to the organisers, the rest to a Moscow Children's Hospital. If you're not used to cycling, this is no holiday. Some days you have to pedal up to 75 miles, but you spend the first day out of the saddle because the M10 motorway out of St. Petersburg is terrifying enough on a bus, let alone a bike. This is your third time on a charity bike ride in Russia.
Yes.
Are you glutton for punishment or what?
Insane, probably, actually, is part of it, but it's a fantastic experience.
I saw an advert in the big issue that's about the bike ride, and I thought, oh, maybe I could do that.
Well, that's the first 100 miles done without breaking into a sweat.
This is home for the next couple of days, except it's not my home, it's Irina's. She takes in paying guests like me. Now, it's a much more intimate experience than normal bed and breakfast. This, for instance, is actually Irina's daughter's room, as you may be able to tell from the very fine, cuddly toy assortment here.
All homestay families live in the suburbs, but close to the metro. Irina's fine collection of Russian classics and wicked sense of humour are other bonuses.
My teacher of literature used to say that teaching crime and punishment at school is both crime and punishment for both, for pupils and for her.
Oh, that's excellent. That's spot on. No matter how fine the hospitality, you'd be mad not to rush straight out to marvel at the delights of St. Petersburg. The Hermitage with its grand statues emphasises the fact that this city should be explored on foot.
At first sight, you wouldn't believe the bus has dropped you off in one of the most beautiful places in Russia, Novgorod.
Novgorod means new town, but it's one of the oldest cities in Russia, growing rich by guarding the trade routes between the Vikings and the Greeks. Of the 40 or so perfectly preserved churches in Novgorod, this one, the Church of the Saviour, is my favourite. 6 centuries old and a great place to practice free kicks. But modern Novgorod is like every other Russian city, full of quaint Soviet heroism, like this cosmonaut Messiah here at Gagarin Square. Or, blasting off from the middle of a roundabout, a MiG fighter. I've not seen anything like that in Novgorod's twin town, Watchford.
Room with a Soviet view. I've stayed in in-tourist hotels from Moscow to Vladivostok and they're all exactly the same. Dodgy Czechoslovak phone, a radio built to celebrate the 1980 Moscow Olympics. This one's different though, it comes with a Scotsman and his bike.
Hello.
So how did you raise your sponsorship money?
Well, apart from a lot of brass necking, one of the most imaginative things that I think that I did was to get my hair shaved all off at an open-air festival in Glasgow. And then I went back into work and got more money from sponsored fields and sponsored no fields for people who really didn't want to do it at all.
For a more adventurous tour of the city, hook up with Peter Kozyrev through the International Hostel. He runs the aptly named Across the Rooftop tours, which are not for the faint-hearted. For a city with no natural vantage points, this is the perfect way to get your bearings. And it's not just the physical exertion that makes your adrenaline rush. Peter's tours are rather unofficial.
So what would happen to us if we got caught up here?
Oh, don't really know. Probably end up in Siberia shoveling snow.
Peter limits the number of people he takes up through his secret skylight, so you must book in advance. Now, the rooftops are not just the preserve of scared tourists like me. Peter says in summer people clamber up to spend the evenings lolling around on the creaking tin. It's fortunately stronger than it looks.
Could you step quietly?
Okay. It's easier said than done. It's strange, you almost feel like you can touch it from here.
There's something really exciting, emotional even, about being caught up in this sweep of energy as 40 comrades pedal like mad to raise money and extend their horizons.
The first day's ride is the equivalent of cycling from York to Newcastle, and some of the roads don't look as though they've been touched since the war when the Red Army chased out the Germans. We're strangers in a very strange land.
If you're looking for exciting scenery, you're in the wrong place.
Russia is basically a very big version of Norfolk, flat as a blini.
When the Idiot Cafe opened last year, the local residents, unused to our often contrived cafe society, didn't get the mismatched furnishings and distressed look. Understandably, they thought it rather shabby. I thought I was in Central Perk.
Now, you may recognise some of these. This is borscht, which is the hot or cold soup. And this is pelmeni, which is a Russian type of pasta. And this, of course, is the essential Russian fare. It is blinis with caviar. The most surprising thing about this menu is it's entirely vegetarian. Or, as the menu so delightfully puts it, thank you, said Mr. Cow.
All washed down with a thoroughly Italian cappuccino. East meets west in a coffee cup.
The ride is mostly on country lanes, but sometimes you can't avoid main roads. And if you want guaranteed good weather, don't go cycling 600 miles from the Arctic Circle. The best you can say about the food is that it exists. Still, at least you get the chance to catch up on all that bicycle techno talk. Staraya Russa, a lovely place to end the day. And while 40 sweaty bikers squabble over the total of 3 showers at tonight's hotel, I'm avoiding the crowds by seeking out the home of the local hero, Dostoevsky, the creator of Crime and Punishment. Unlike the tours of the old Soviet Union, you can wander off wherever you wish. Rural Russia is so tranquil. And there's no sign of the KGB.
They'll get you one day, Mr. Calder, for crimes against bicycle saddles. Back at the ever-popular Banya, I'm about to indulge in the weekly social event. It's cleansing as well. There's steam, cold plunges, heat and twigs.
Now, this is what people really come to Banya for. They're birch or oak leaves, and they get rid of toxins. Go, toxins, go!
So this is how it works. You shower, then you stand in a boiling hot room and an enormous Russian man hits you with steamy birch twigs. It's blimmin' marvellous.
Well, isn't that just so much more than you hoped or expected from Glasgow?
And then you jump into a very cold plunge pool and just watch those toxins float away. If you too want this kind of treatment, pick up a free copy of Pulse or the St. Petersburg Times and check when the banyas are open.
Back in the USSR, foreigners could be arrested for cycling. So to be able to ride around the biggest country on earth is wonderfully liberating and jolly hard work. A charity bike ride is no free holiday, but it is a chance to meet a fine bunch of cyclists and, above all, to help some young Russians beyond the care of capitalism.
To me, St. Petersburg is like some grand old Russian dame. She's been through the wars a bit and she's married the wrong kind of blokes and had lots of different surnames. But she's come through with her indomitable spirit still intact and a kind of ageless beauty that is a little bit crumbling round the edges. So I would say come to St. Petersburg and live as I've done, as close as possible to how the locals live, and that grand old Russian dame will become one of your best friends.
Only British Airways and Aeroflot fly direct to St. Petersburg, but it could be easier and cheaper to go on a package as the tour company will sort out all the necessary visa requirements. My 3-night homestay costs £447, which includes flights via Vienna. For a similar package with a direct flight, you'll pay another £100.
The charity bike ride I linked up with was one of dozens organised in various parts of the world. The basic idea is that you pay a registration fee of about £200, then undertake to raise at least £2,000 in sponsorship. £1,000 goes to the tour operator and pays for your flights, accommodation, meals and bike. The rest goes to the nominated charity.